I want to bring in right now from Nakuru, Dr. Muli Maundu, who is an environmental governance expert. Many thanks for joining us here on KTN News Center. I'll just start by asking you, are we doing enough to harvest water?
Thank you so much, KTN, for inviting me here. Thank you so much, Ashley. Yes, this is a critical topic that the entire world should be discussing. And the question whether we are doing much to harvest water, yes, we are somewhere, but we have a long way to go. Those are my opening remarks. But I want to recognize that with 3% of the fresh water needed for animals, for human beings, and other modes of maybe constructions, we need to do much to ensure we harvest water. And the 97%, which is solid water, also need to be taken into consideration, and perhaps other ways to treat this water need to happen. Because every year we get cycles of drought, we get cycles of floods. So this is a high time we need to focus ourselves and ask ourselves which and where are we going wrong.
All right. And of course, you've said we have a long way to go. We're still, on our way, but we'll be getting there. But how should we get to that final destination? What should we do?
I look at this point in two perspectives: the indigenous mode of harvesting water and the modern ways of harvesting water. Mm-hmm. We are in a era of technology. We need to use technology to ensure we harvest water. Look at case studies of either Uganda, Nigeria, other countries like Kenya, where we are still using the indigenous way of harvesting water. And I like the way you put it across the means of harvesting water. Is this sufficient enough for us to get there? Yes, it could be. Building dams, tanks, fish ponds, and other ponds to harvest water. But there are other parameters that we need to take into consideration. Look at incentives that we can give to people who harvest water. Look at our policies. Look at our regulations. We have a Water Act. A lot has been happening in the spheres of encouraging citizens to harvest water. There are a lot of MOUs that have been signed between governments and partners. And NGOs also are focusing on means of harvesting water. But so the key underlying factor.
So then are there policies that are there policies?
This country has sufficient policies to ensure harvesting water is taken into consideration. And I'll give an example. Look at the revised Refueled Water Act of 2015, which actually gave bore other government agencies like the Kenya Water Services Trust, that is supposed to ensure water is collected, managed in the right way. And these policies also are working closely with the county government. The county governments are also expected to work closely with the national governments to ensure these policies are in place. Yes, we have enough policies, but the point of consideration is this: do we have resources that we can put in place to ensure the water is harvested both at the institutional level, domestic level, and other levels? These are the key points we need to be asking ourselves.
All right. And I'm glad you brought in the issue of resources, because we have been speaking to some of the residents of Kakamega and Kisumu. And one of the challenges that they have raised is they cannot afford to buy tanks to store water, which then brings my next question. What are other options we have when it comes to harvesting water? I want us to start with the rural areas before we go to the urban areas.
The question that, thank you so much. The question that we need to ask ourselves is this. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can find other means of harvesting water, right? But are we doing much to ensure the water that we get is properly stored? I'll give an example. A farmer will wake up, dig a dam, but the water percolates downwards. What are we doing to ensure we give resources like just, plastic, nylon, things to ensure the water doesn't go up? These are the things that we need to be asking ourselves. Yes, we can tell the farmers do this, but do we have extension services to work with the people in the rural areas to ensure this water is conserved? Mm-hmm. And those are the things that Amois and we should be advocating for. We need to be talking about incentives. For instance, if you do a dam and then you supply water to the rural people with that dam, are you giving incentives by the government structures to ensure you are also compensated so that you can encourage people to invest in this kind of reservoirs, water reservoirs? And for me, that is very, very important.
All right, and I want us to look at some of the challenges that we face when it comes to water harvesting, and one of them is slow implementation and low technology adoption, then unsustainable grant-based communities, low technology adoption and sustainable grants. The next one is inadequate adoption of agro-business approaches, and inadequate financing mechanisms, and companies such as Kenya Power use a lot of water for production but do little in water harvesting. And that is where I come to you, Dr. Muli. We're seeing challenges, but how exactly are we tackling these challenges so that we can better our water harvesting?
The governance, thank you so much, Ashley. The governance is critical. I'll talk about Kenya Power, which you have given an example. They produce power, and there are other alternatives of producing power, but they use hydro, which is actually mostly used, and we are talking about wind power and the rest. Those are things that we are still working on. But Kenya Power also should come up with the initiative of ensuring that water is harvested and also water is stored. We should be seeing programs being run, not on CSR aspects or manner, but in a holistic manner. We need to be seeing stakeholders working together. We need to see investors coming in to harvest water, and at the same time also task rabbits given to these people. Because unless we do that, that cannot go. And the aspect of technology also is very, very important. Look at the way we salinate water. How do we ensure the saline water is put to use? Technology also coming. Yes, that is very important. And how also we build our dams. And mentioned that earlier. We need to come up with technologies to ensure how we construct the dams is able to sustain the water, because most of this water is either wasted through evaporation and other way of water wastage. So it is still very, very important for all of us to work together. And I'm happy when the Minister of Water came up with MOUs with the Minister of Agriculture to ensure we have MOUs signed between these two ministries, and also the Ministry of Environment, on where we can tap these so scarce resources, which if we are not going to ensure we harvest our water, we're going to have a disaster, not in this country, but all over the world. And we have to ensure we have sufficient water to take care of the human beings, whether animals, people, and the rest. This is very important, Ashley.
All right, we will also be giving you more facts on water harvesting, but then what are the solutions that we can put in place going forward?
I love the aspect of solution, because this is what we need to be talking about in the 21st century. We have been talking about processes, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, but we now need to work on solutions. And the solutions are with us. And I've mentioned some of them, like getting some incentives to ensure if I come up with my dam in my rural place, I'll give an incentive. How much can I, for example, if I'm buying a water pump, for instance, the water pump needs to be rebated to ensure at least some amount is taken from the actual cost of that. And then also work with the academia on other means of harvesting water. We also need to work with our partners, and we borrow case studies where this has been done. I'll give an example of Thika Dam. Thika Dam is a case study in this country where Dakaini is collecting a lot of water for Nairobians and the other people who are around Nairobi. And if you can have more Thika dams in this country, we can sort some of these things. Look at the river, stretching from the complex, the water towers, all the way to Indian Ocean. And few things have been done across that river. So it's a high time to construct dams. Look at Egypt and the Nile. They have done enough dams across that river. And countries like Egypt are self-sufficient this type of time. And every time we get rains, we are getting Norfolk, menace, and we complain year and out. This is the time we need to wake up and focus on solution and to ensure technology is paramount. We move from the indigenous collection of water with sufurias when it rains, with buckets and the rest, to getting proper way to do things. And this needs to be done like yesterday.
You've said that this needs to be done like yesterday, and we'll be getting to that. But first, let's just take a look at the water institutions in Kenya that are in charge of establishing water, and we'll have Water Resources Authority, we have a Basin Water Resources Committee, and we have Water Service Regulatory Board. We also have Waterworks Development Agencies, $1 Billion Alliance, World Agroforestry Center, African Sand Dam. And I'll be getting back to you, Dr. Muli. You've said this needed to be done like yesterday. And of course, it hasn't been done. There are organizations, there are institutions that have been put in place, but still nothing is working, or it's not working at the pace that we would love to work, for it to work. So what next?
Well, since 1963, when we got independence, one of the key things, and if you look at the Paris on Sustainable Development Goals, number 6 talks about provision of good water and clean water. Also, our Constitution talks about that. And there's a lot of effort that has been put. Entrenching actually supply of clean water in our Constitution is a plus for the country. And also a lot of MOUs signed between ministries is also a plus for us. So we need to fast track these things. It's just a matter of fast tracking and getting good governance. We need to put in place, young men and women who can be able to look at the mandates for this institution you have mentioned and ensure we implement what the mandate says. And just partner with a lot of institutions to ensure this is done. And it's not rocket science. It has been done in many countries. Look at the farm gardens in Florida, in US. Look at what the South Africans have done, Botswana. These things can be done. So we borrow and implement what we can do in this country. But however, we are still somewhere. And I expect maybe by the turn of 2030, as provided in the master plan for this country, we will have sufficient water and clean water for all Kenyans.
All right, as we conclude, Kenya is on its way to implementing all these water harvesting policies. But what can we borrow from other countries that have already implemented their policies to the fullest?
By the way, Ashley, water harvesting is a challenge all over the world. And UK and US and other countries in the Western countries have done a lot to ensure water harvesting is done. So, and our plans for this country, we borrow a lot from the best countries that have been implementing this. So going forward, it's easy. We don't need to keep on crying every season of rain that our roads have been messed up. We need to ensure we construct our dams in the right way. We ensure we conserve our environment, forest. We ensure we adopt the best farming practices. Basic things like not flying across the contrast, so that when rain comes, building trenches and the rest in our farms, so that when the rain comes, the rain can settle and it percolates inside the soil. Those are the basic things that we can do. And then again, we adapt to our technology. I'm not going to leave that behind. And also, we work within the stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Before I let you go, I want us to listen to some of the reactions from residents of Kwale on what they had to say on water harvesting.
Hii masuala ya mvua ina ukingaji maji huku Kwale hatuna kabisa, kwa sababu mvua ni nyingi lakini sehemu za Kwale huko Matuga kwenye friji mengine haitoi maji. Tunashangaa maji ya kuna mvua. Hata tuelewe serikali yetu ya county ni vipi. Tupate jawabu mwafaka, angalau tukinge maji ili wakati wa kiangaza tuwe na maji ya kutosha. Hata kama pale Marere maji hamna. Na ndio supply ya Kwale County pia Mombasa County.
Mimi natatizwa na serikali yetu kwa sababu hivi sasa tunaona mvua inamwaika ya kutosha, lakini maji inaenda tu bure. Naingia tu kwa mito, naingia tu kwa manini, kwa sewage, lakini sioni jambo lolote ambalo linafanyika at least ku harvest haya maji. Angalau tungekuwa tuko na mahali angalau tunafikiria kama mabwawa yanawekwa maji, ndo at least wakati wa kiangazi pia maji haya tuwe tunayatamani. Area hii ya Kwale iko na mvua ya kutosha, lakini inatatiza time kama hii kuna watu ambao hata saizi wana shida ya maji. Na maji haya yangekuwa yanashikika angalau yakatumika hata baadaye. Sioni kwa nini maji yamwaike tu ovyo, na ili hali kuna njia nyingi ambazo serikali inaweza kuja nazo ambazo zinaweza kufanya hii maji angalau ikasaidia hata wakati ambapo hakuna.
All right, Dr. Muli, those are just some of the reactions we're getting from residents of Kwale. What are you going to say about this? What is your reactions towards this?
It's a very sad story. The language every year that we are losing lives and properties. And then after the rains and floods, we are also getting concern from the citizen that the animals are dying because of drought. It's the high time we just bring our act together and push forward as a country to ensure water harvesting is done in the right way, using technology, involvement of stakeholders, and everyone who is a stakeholder in this aspect of water harvesting, so that we can have a country that has water reliability. And this is something very key we need to be following as a country, and we need not to talk about it come November, December, the other rain season. And I hope this one will be settled up. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Dr. Muli Maundu, there, environmental governance expert.